So I got to thinking today, like, what are the most useful classes I ended up taking in high school? School has limited use for freelancers, entrepreneurs, sometimes even artists. I say limited use. I didn't say no use. School is an important part of our growth, and yet it has the potential to be so much better and not lead people down these hallways of this is life and this is how it is and this is the way you should do it. People get stuck there and then they end up living lives that they don't want, don't like. They're not able to create the life they love because they're limited by everything. I remember having a conversation about how it's cheaper to travel the world than it is to live in a major city. And people are like, no way, you need a lot of money to travel the world. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't. You literally don't. It is cheaper to travel the world than it is to live in a major city like New York or LA. I find it surprising that people think that's surprising. Now, of course, it depends on how you route your trip. Nevertheless, you're going to waste all your money in Zurich or something like that. It really depends on how you route your trip. But if for example, you spend a good chunk of your time in Asia, honestly, even if you go to Japan and stay in Tokyo, chances are it's cheaper than most major cities in North America. It just is. The food is way cheaper. So school is leaving people with a lot of incorrect assumptions. That combined with the fact that our ego wants to be right about everything is like a really dangerous combination for getting stuck in a certain way of life that's dictated to you instead of the life by your creation. Life by default instead of life by design. So that's kind of my preamble. But again, this one is about focusing on what were the most useful subjects and classes in school. Number one for me, absolutely number one for me, seems to be something that everyone can do nowadays, but it wasn't always the case, especially when I was growing up, and that's typing. I did not like my teacher all that much. She had a strict 3 strikes out policy. If you missed your homework, and it was not exactly easy to remember, and this was even an elective course if I'm not mistaken. It was not a core subject, but if you missed your homework 3 times, didn't get a signature from your parent, you were out. That was it. You were not going to get a pass in that course. Did not like that system, did not like my teacher. What did I learn though? I learned how to type. And you know what? That's like an essential skill now. I'm just glad that I was ahead of the curve rather than behind it in that regard. Number 2 is English. So I ended up starting in English 10 just like everybody else, and I didn't do very well. Probably because I grew up in Japan and I was still only, 2 years living in Canada, not even 1 full year. And so I'm taking English at the level that everyone else is taking it, and I'm struggling a little bit. And the biggest thing was reading speed. I don't even know that to this day I have a reading speed that exceeds most people, just that I'm far more dedicated to reading, period. I've read a couple hundred books, going on to 300. I mean, I plan to make my way to hundreds, maybe even thousands of books in the following years. But at the time, I was not a good reader. I really struggled with it. And so I think I got a passing grade, but just barely good enough. And from there, I went into English 23, which is the lesser one. If I'd done well in English 10, I would have moved on to English 20. I didn't. I went into English 23. I did very well in English 23. And part of that was I'd always had kind of this innate fascination with vocabulary. I had an obsession with it. I just wanted to learn more words. I thought it was amazing that some people could sound so smart and intelligent. It's a pretty silly thing looking back now, but these are the thoughts that occur to a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, right? I just thought, wow, these people sound so smart using all these words that I didn't even know existed and don't know what they mean. And so I became quite obsessed with vocabulary, and because of that, I'd gotten a lot of practice reading and writing. And I built my own websites too. And that's not thanks to school. That was something I learned on my own, even though I did end up taking computer programming courses and other classes where I was able to build a website for extra credit, but that had nothing to do with me learning HTML from scratch or anything from the sort. I already knew how to do it because I'd spent a lot of time doing it myself, and I'd also written content for my websites. People are lazy now and they want to rely on AI to write everything for them, but I think there's incredible value in learning to write. And so I went on to English 20. I upgraded the same year. So that was my 4th English class, and then in grade 12, I took English 30. So yeah, I went on to English 30. By that point, I had gotten so good at it and had dedicated myself to it that I ended up getting, I think it was 70 or 80% on my multiple choice, which is fine. Like, I'm satisfied with that. But I ended up getting 100% on my English essay. And I'm rather proud of that fact. So I ended up doing very well in English. Still wasn't a great reader. And honestly, you think I would be able to tell you what a verb or an adverb is or an adjective is? That stuff never stuck with me, no matter how many times I learned it. And plus, it was like too remedial for at the point at which I was entering into English classes in junior high and high school. Never needed it though. Like, I wouldn't say I never needed it. Sometimes I see that and people are talking about tense and adverbs and adjectives and incorrect writing or grammar, spelling or whatever. My whole thing is like, who gives a damn if you can't communicate a message in a way that anyone can understand it. And I see a lot of writing like that. And I've had to process a lot of writing like that and turn it into my own language at this point. So if you can't teach others how something works, you're just lost in technical jargon. And then the third most useful or valuable class, at least for me, in high school was art. I took as many art courses or art classes as I possibly could. Obviously an elective and not a core subject, but I always loved drawing and painting and doing things with my hands and crafting. And weirdly enough, like, those classes ended up offering the opportunity. By the time I was in grade 12, I'd started playing guitar. I spent some of the time in class just playing guitar and chatting with my buddies sitting across from me instead of drawing anything. And I was starting to feel a little bit uninspired by drawing at that point for whatever reason. I was still doing it, but I just didn't feel super inspired by it. And so sitting there playing guitar kind of was the new exciting thing to do at the time. Maybe if I'd spent more time looking and assessing what sort of electives and classes were available, as well as what I could expect to learn in them, I might have taken away a few more useful things from high school. Nevertheless, in becoming an independent thinker, at some point you just got to choose. It's not something that people are going to give you permission to do, and in fact, people are sometimes even going to criticize you and look down on you for being an independent thinker and questioning everything. And that's why you just got to choose to do it. It's so important, especially if you want to create a life that you love, not one that's been dictated by another person.
It's coming up fast and there's no time. Clean Slate 2024 is coming up fast, February 16th in Victoria, BC. You don't want to miss out on this incredible live music and multimedia event with a dosage of inspiration to light you up creatively and to have an amazing 2024. Once again, that's Clean Slate. You don't want to miss out. Go to davidandrewweeb.com and you'll either have the option to get updates, win tickets, or buy tickets as soon as they go on sale. So once again, I invite you to go to davidandrewweeb.com and get your tickets right away. See you there.